Hi and welcome to this podcast. And with me today I have Samraaj Bath. Samraaj has a background of two-time Y Combinator founder. Also has a background as ice cream with the ice cream company, birthday wishing app. You've been engaged in professional dancing and even rebuilt an old motorcycle. It seems like you have done a lot.
Yeah, apparently I hate being bored. So every ounce of free time I've had in the past, whether I was working a job or doing my own businesses and stuff, I would just throw into a craft or something and just really explore something.
Yeah, and this time it's time for Ion Design, which is an AI tool. And it's also part of this Y Combinator. And for those that don't know about that company, it's maybe you can just give a short description of what that
Yeah,
is doing.
Y Combinator is a big Silicon Valley tech investor and accelerator. They've invested in companies like Airbnb, Reddit, Dropbox, and Stripe, some of the biggest companies in the world right now. And they're a legendary tech investor, and they invest in the next generation of startups. And we are thankful to be a portfolio company of theirs.
Yeah, I can guess so. That means, I mean, it must be a big difference. But go to your latest company, the Ion Design. I spent this summer to learn more about like Lovable, which is a Swedish tool. But here we have something else. Could you just give us a brief explanation of what Ion Design can help us with?
Yeah, Ion Design. We built a AI design agent named Ruby. She lives directly in your Slack. You can assign her design tasks. She'll do research. She'll talk with your stakeholders. She'll understand your personas and do asynchronous product design work and present a bunch of options to you. So you could think of her as a full stack product designer that lives in your Slack and works with you just like a regular designer would.
Wow, it's really cool. So this is the end of the normal product owner and product designer, the human kind of.
I don't think so. I actually see her more so as a resource. Actually, quite a few of our customers are designers who use her for like the cumbersome research step of their design process, right? They want to own the more fun, like, iterative visual design process, but they don't want to spend a lot of time sourcing inspiration from sites like Mobbin or really deeply going through all the company documentation, get personas and like thesis statements. So they assign Ruby, she'll do all that asynchronous research, present it to them, and they actually could take it over from there. Whereas earlier companies that maybe don't have like really strong visual design needs, they use Ruby all the way through for the entire process. And really long term, the way we see this is we want Ruby to be like the world's best product designers that proactively understand what flows are working on your site versus what flows aren't working and goes and tries to fix them and presents them to you in Slack. So you don't actually have to ask her to do things. She's just always working.
This is fantastic. Really looking forward to trying it. When will we see this alive?
It's already alive. You could go and onboard right now at ion.design and add her to your Slack and she'll get right to work.
I guess there's been a couple of people involved in building this tool. You're totally in the center of AI, and could you give us a little bit? How does it work when? I mean, AI is constantly changing and evolving. So, how do you lead a team like that?
Yeah, so I think that there's a couple of interesting things that are different from classical software development and classical hiring, but also a lot of it is the same. The fundamentals are is that you want to find folks that are inherently curious about the problem you're working on, willing to stay at the cutting edge, but also not people who get themselves into hype too much, right? Because I think that the way, like the best practices for AI development change essentially every 6 months, right? And if you are 6 months behind, you're actually doing yourself a huge disservice to how well your product can function. Because like the last generation of tools may have changed very quickly based on everyone using the same underlying models and how those have been trained. I'll give you an example. Like, let's say about 6 months ago, the state of the art was streaming text from the AI models and parsing the outputs. Then OpenAI decided to stop training their model on haikus or whatever and started training function calling. Now function calling is very stable, very secure, and actually the best way to architect your products. So your underlying product had to have changed exactly how it was architected in order to work the best it does now. And if you're not at the cutting edge, you'll very quickly fall behind on the best ways to do things and introduce a lot of architectural hassles for yourself. So in terms of hiring, you need to find people who are very willing to stay at that cutting edge and willing to rip your thing apart at any moment's notice in order to make it work as best as possible.
Yeah, it's like what I'm trying to tell my kids that you need to be a little bit ahead. It's like surfing. It's better to be in front of the wave than being at the end of the wave because then you're going backwards. I mean, that's
Yeah.
much harder.
Exactly. But I will say that if you are a little bit too much at the edge, you'll buy into hype a little bit too much. I think that there's a lot of really interesting agentic frameworks, but basically everyone I've talked to has to graduate off of them at some point. So if I was too much at the edge, I would start building on top of those, and then I would kind of screw myself. So you have to like know when to make the right decisions architecturally, and those people are very hard to find.
Makes very much sense because if you're too at the front line, I mean, then you have too many options because you don't really, in the beginning, know which one of those will be the main one. And of course, then you will be just hunting new things.
Exactly. And also on top of that, I think that like what AI is allowing us is every single employee has like a lot more leverage now, right? Every person who works on a company has a lot more leverage. And if you're not doing, if you feel like you're not getting leverage from the AI, that's like a full different discussion because I think you have to architect your company around this stuff in order to get the best out of it. But if you're leveraging the wrong type of decision making, you're just going to go faster in the wrong direction, which is what makes building in this type of space and getting the right talent very difficult. You have to have very vision aligned folks that are willing to like put in whatever strategy in order to get the win. And if you start like doubting vision or if you start like pushing in the wrong direction, you're going to end up like far away, stranded in the middle of the ocean somewhere. So that's why it's really important to be like really aligned right now because you move so fast.
Yeah, that makes very much sense. And unfortunately, this is something I try to tell the top management that your work is to align people. And they believe their work is to take decisions. And I say, you're too slow. You have to give the decision making to the people actually being close to the problems, not you are too far away.
Yeah, so I've been managing like people for I don't even know how long, like 6, 7 years now at this point, which I mean is not that long compared to a lot of folks, but also is long compared to a lot, right? And the biggest learning I've had about management is at the core, it's about aligning incentives, right? Like as a manager, you have incentives on your own career, you have incentives at the company, and each employee that works for you has incentives not only about like their career at the company, but in their life in general. Like what is the balance that they want? What do they want to do with their career? Where does their career want to go? And you have to figure out what the aligning points behind what their individual unique motivation is with the motivation of the company and try to find as much of an aligned vector as possible in order to get them to do their best work. I've never found that you could get the best work out of folks by just being like, hey, you have to do this. You have to figure out the way that they could get intrinsically motivated about the problems that you're solving.
I totally agree with you. Is it like, because that is something I've been thinking of. I mean, when you're hiring people, really ask them, what are you passionate about? And I would like them to be passionate about what the product is about.
Yeah.
I mean, what we are delivering. So they are like customers themselves.
Yeah, I think that's really important, right? Like being able to get somebody that's excited about the vision and actually wants to use a tool is huge. But also, I would say that it's not so much about the exact tool, but more so about the vision, as long as because the vision is not going to change, right? Like the vision is mostly going to remain the same for the lifetime of a company. The product likely is going to be ripped apart 100 times before you find PMF, right? So you can't like over-index on the individual iteration that you're on right now for hiring. You have to figure out the people that can get aligned behind a vision and just like go to war with you, right? And I think that's probably one of the most important things that you could do when you're hiring right now.
Yeah, definitely. When I was working at the travel agency, I wanted to have people that was passionate about making booking travels easy. That was a basic idea. I mean,
I like that. No, and also, I mean, I think there's also just different ways to do this, right? I worked at Expensify previously, which is a expense reporting tool. Pretty hard to find people who are passionate about expense reporting, I've got to say. And their approach was it's like, hey guys, like this thing is boring. I'm not gonna lie. So we're gonna put all sorts of interesting stuff around it and give us the best environment to do the best work in this boring industry. And it worked. It worked great. Which is why it's kind of like, hey, you got to work with the cards that you're dealt. And that those incentives might be different for whatever company you're in. Maybe you'll find like some crazy expense reporting nerd that's like, I'm in this for life, right? But that's probably not going to happen for the majority of like hundreds of people organizations. So you have to figure out how to like get people jazzed about problems that maybe aren't like super sexy, but also give them the right like incentives around who they are individually and figure out what makes them tick and make sure that like that is the best place for them to be.
yeah, I totally agree with you. Cool. So, Ion Design is about helping people build using AI, build stuff. I don't know. Is it just for websites or is it also for iPhone apps or?
It is currently only for web, just because like the tech stack makes it a lot easier and faster to ship over there. But we want to get to the point of doing like mobile apps, especially with React Native, very soon. I just think that like picking a little bit more of a narrow like problem set first in order to like get all the demand and really start tapping out that market before we go to mobile makes sense. But I do think that mobile is very untapped with AI right now.
We are seeing a couple of those tools, I want to say, but and a lot of people are starting using them and so on. But you are more in the center than I am, and it would be really interesting to hear what are the typical misunderstandings that people get when they are using your tool or any other tool that helps them build websites.
Yeah, man. I think that the process of making something 0 to 1 is very different from the process of actually scaling and growing a company, right? I think a lot of people get addicted to like the rush of like iteratively building, right? Because you start getting into this process with tools like Lovable, which is an incredible tool, where you're like, all right, just one more prompt. It's like chips, which is I think why their ARR scaled so fast, right? Is because when you're in that flow of coding, you're like, okay, I just got to do this now, and it's like a huge adrenaline rush and like dopamine rush every time you get something working, and then you're like, okay, but it's not perfect. Another prompt, another prompt, another prompt, and then you're like hundreds of prompts deep. The thing kind of works, and then you're really happy. And I think that's like a really great cycle to get in that a lot of coders have felt for a very long time, and it made it a lot more accessible to a lot more people, which I think is awesome. The thing is that is the start of the race. That is not the race, right? The start of the race is getting your product out there and actually understanding the feedback and iterating on it, you know? And that is where the hard part of building a startup is. That's where the despair, that's where the misery of like really understanding the market and getting punched in the face comes. I think a lot of people start to think that like, okay, I have these tools. All of a sudden, I can build this billion-dollar company. It's like, no, now you have the ability to get to the starting line to start trying to build that company. And that is actually the easiest part. The hard part is like, how do I stay motivated about building this for a very, very long time? So that is, I think, one misunderstanding. Two, I think on the converse side, a lot of engineers who have spent a lot of time in industry start to dismiss AI written code as not good enough, right? And I do think that is the case for a lot of like systems programming and a lot of like specific types. But my opinion has changed quite a bit over the last few weeks. I think that and it changed because like I met with some of our investors who are like very, very incredible developers. Like I think some of the best developers in the world. And one of my other friends who I consider to be like an incredible developer. And he's like, dude, AI writes over 90% of my code. And I was like, how? Like you get like crazy results if you do things. Like I can't control these things. And he's like, oh, actually like it's a leveraging factor. If you don't think AI can do this stuff, you won't set up all of your systems to be conducive for AI development. And then you're going to get bad results. So it's just leveraging your bad results onto like more and more code. Whereas if you take the time to set up all the proper hygiene, all the right documentation, and set up your code base in a way where your files are small enough and it has the right loops, it could really go to town. And I think that is a misunderstanding on either side. It's either that like this thing is amazing and can do everything, or this thing doesn't work at all. I think the answer is kind of in the middle, whereas if you set up the right hygiene, if you set up all the right things in your code base to be conducive towards this type of development, you can get some incredible results off of this thing, and it really feels like your company is 10 times larger than it is.
I totally agree with you. That was my learning as well, because I felt like, first of all, being a developer helped a lot, because I got the prototype very quickly. But then, at some time, we didn't really have a good understanding of each other, me and Lovable in this case. And then it was great to be able to just go in and fix. And when I did that, I'm not a very good coder when it comes to Node.js, but I was impressed of how the code looked like, because it was, I would say, really good code. It was easy to understand for me, much better than if a human would have actually wrote it. So
Yeah.
I totally agree with both points you have. Okay, so the tool you have is about making complex workflows simple. Is this something you use yourself? And also, are you thinking of this when it comes to leadership and company culture?
Yeah, I mean, I use it to design all of our stuff for Ion. Like our entire dashboard, actually just this last week, I just ripped apart our dashboard and built out something completely from scratch. And not only because we actually needed a lot of changes to it, but also because it was a great dogfooding experiment where I was able to use Ruby to actually get all of the screens done and go and implement them. And when you're actively dogfooding your product and want to use it every day, I mean, like, there's no better type of feedback you could ever get. You know, that's like the lifeblood of a startup is you being your own customer. If you're able to do that consistently, you could go and scale that motion to more people. If you can't serve yourself, it's kind of like, all right, what's the point here? You know? Um, yeah, so that's one. And then what was, sorry, the other question that you had asked there?
No, like, are you using this in when you think of leadership and company culture as well? Because that is also complex things.
Yeah, of course. So in terms of dog fooding, I'll talk about that specifically. When I worked at Expensify, they had a policy where we got free lunch every single day, right? First off, you would think that's just a classic Silicon Valley thing. But no, it was actually dog fooding because they said, go to whatever restaurant you want, you get free lunch as long as you expense it through Expensify. Every single day I would come in and I would use Expensify and I would be like, all right, this is stupid, like, because I would have a bad experience at using it. That would turn into a ticket, I would go and fix it, and then the product got better. And that was a great cycle that I made at my company that allowed us to do something really awesome. And in terms of company culture, I want everyone in my company to have, like, first off, engineering background. I think that's really important for anyone building an AI company because you need to have systems thinking in order to use this thing really well. And two, I want everyone to be able to feel like they could actually put their hands on the product and get real product iterations off of Ruby. And if their stuff is good enough, I want to give everyone the ability to ship it. You know, and if I set up my company that way, it will serve as a prototype or a template for a lot of companies that we sell to.
It sounds very much like we did at the Travelocity Nordic that I was the CTO of, and even though that was almost 20 years ago, but the idea was that we wanted everyone to be using our own website to be helping customers, but also helping themselves. It's such a big difference. Totally agree with you. How do you think that AI will change how teams are set up and organizations are working? Will we see any difference, or will it just go on and be the same as we have done for 20 years?
I think that there's going to be huge, significant differences to how we do work, even with the current state of the models. But I also don't think that everything is going to be ripped apart by an AGI. At least I don't have enough information to know that for the next year or two. And I'll explain both individually, right? The first one, I think everyone's going to turn into like review, managerial, and intellectual workers that have a lot more leverage to what they do. Let's imagine a world where like the AI coding agents are incredible, or these AI design agents like Ruby are incredible, which she already is, but you know. What does your work turn into? You turn into like a really damn good manager. Like you show up every day, the agents have gone and done their work, you have to review the work, understand what is the exact right thing for the company at the time, understand how it fits with the rest of the product and fits with the rest of the folks, and approve, iterate, and ship. That's not too different from what you do right now, but you've now stepped from an IC role into a managerial role. Which is why I think that you still want to hire the best engineers in the world. You don't want to hire somebody untechnical. Because who are the best engineering managers in the world? They're all technical. If you have an engineering manager that's not technical, you're going to be like, what the hell? Like, this is weird. Whereas if you have an engineering manager that's technical, that understands the guts of what you're doing, understands architecture really well, that is the person you want to work with. It's the same exact thing with AI. If AI is doing a bunch of coding work, you want a technical person to be able to review, direct, and execute on it the best way possible. I think this is the true regardless of discipline, right? If you're a designer, you want really good design agents working with you, but you also want a really good designer to help direct it, review it, and integrate it into a company. If you have a data analyst, same exact things. And I think that the nature of your work is going to shift up one level, and there's going to be a lot of these agents doing a lot of work for you, and you're going to be able to have intelligence essentially on tap, because that's what inference is. And if you have intelligence on tap, you want to make sure to be able to leverage that in the right way. And that's going to change like how these organizations function. And that's how we're changing our organization to function. Now, do I believe that AGI is going to come and rip apart a lot of these roles? I don't think so. Like the way I see it is OpenAI just released like GPT-5 recently. And I think it was a little bit of a lackluster release. I think it's really good, and the PhD level intelligence stuff is really great for very specific evals that they ran. But it's not yet like a crazy AGI in the way that most people think, right? And I think that what's probably going to happen is maybe around next summer, there's going to be a GPT-6 release. And I think it's going to have similar results where people are going to expect this like crazy AGI that can do everything. But it's not really going to be the case. I think the narrative is then going to start to flip where, hey, our existing workflows and existing like structures at companies are probably going to stick around for quite a while, right? Because there has to be like a deeper like architectural breakthrough in order to get like that huge AGI thing, which was a longer time horizon than what we thought. And when we realize that like, hey, these existing structures and workflows need to exist, I think companies' buying patterns and stuff are going to be conducive to tools like Ruby or tools that help them with their existing workflows and structures built. And if all that happens, I think it's just going to be a huge leveraging factor in how things currently work.
Yeah. I really like the idea that we are actually stepping up one step. So going from like developing features, we are going to developing products. So we are sitting very close to the customers. We are full, what do you call it? You know, both back-end and front-end, full stack developer. And in one person, you can just be sitting together with the customer and talking about how do they feel about the product, and you can then talk to your AI help, and then in front of the customer you are developing something, and then you can take from there.
Yeah, or even make it inherently different than the way we currently do things, right? Can it be can it live within that customer environment and proactively, excuse me, take actions? Can like you think of different ways that are completely different from the way we currently do things and put those together?
I mean, it could actually be that every customer had their own customized version because it's so simple to build it. You just have some APIs in the background or something like that. I don't know. A lot of cool things will happen. That is for sure.
That's so there's a concept that I like to reference, which is called like the shipping the AI PRD, right? This is the way I think of things. I think AI PRDs are actually doing pretty well. PRDs are product requirement documents, which is what for anyone listening that doesn't know this, the PRD is a product requirement document that a PM will write in order to like communicate the vision of what they want to build to an engineering team and a design team or other stakeholders. And there have been a lot of companies that like a PM can chat with in order to generate a PRD that they can then hand off to these folks. I think that's actually a transient company. I think the person who's actually disrupting that is Lovable, right? Because now you don't need a PRD anymore. You're skipping that entire step because now you could show and communicate a lot better. You're getting to the core. And I think a lot of the time when you're building with AI, you have to try to avoid building the AI PRD, and you have to try to build a Lovable, where you're like, okay, how do I circumvent this entire process and rip it apart at its seams? Because that's the long-lasting, strong company.
Yeah, really cool. And this moves into the fact that you will have a session in the Leading Complexity program this year, 2025, just if someone is looking at this a little bit later. It will be the October 2nd. What will you be talking about?
I'll be talking about what it's like to build an AI company in this new age. I'll be talking about what it's like to be in the depths of Silicon Valley, the different things you hear, and how to take the right advice, the wrong advice, and put it towards building a great company. I think that there's insane amounts of things that people will tell you without having done the thing yourself. And I think that it's a very hard problem to figure out how to take the right advice, apply to your use case, and figure out what the right way in order to go forward is. And that's kind of what I want to talk about is like, hey, what does it really like to build an AI company? How do you really set yourselves up to make the right decisions? And how do you not average the advice and end up doing something really bad?
That sounds really interesting. I'm very much looking forward to listen to your session. Thank you very much for this interview. It's been really interesting, and I hope to see you soon again, at least for October 2nd.
Yes, I'm very excited for that, and I'll also hopefully make my way over to Sweden soon too. I missed this summer, but maybe next summer because I am allergic to snow.
Okay, then summer is good. Yeah, looking forward to meet you in person.
Yes, same here.
Thank you.